Hello, friends. Doing a mic and a video check. How am I coming in? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Any problems? There's two people. Okay, it looks like people are starting to slowly come in. Does this mean? Yeah, all right, I am live. Oh, okay. All right. Hello, how am I coming in? Can you hear me well? Video's good? Welcome, Proud Thai Cookery, Pari Gupta, Jay Kala, Deborah, Amaranta, Brain Spotting, and Brian Bishop. Oh, hey, Brian. Brian is somebody I've known for many, many years. All right. Okay. Very good. So, friends, welcome to another Empty Cloud live stream. My name is Bhante Jayasara, and I am babysitting the monastery here for Bhante and Aya at Empty Cloud for the next month or so. So this is my first time using this streaming setup. So it doesn't look like there's any hiccups so far, which is good. And so the topic that Aya has given for today is metta is always the answer. And so what? Oh, never mind. Oh, that's what it is. Sorry. I am a noob at this streaming, this specific streaming thing. So if I make mistakes, that's why. All right, friends. So welcome, Raynalyn, Roberta, Brian, Yankee, and Roberta. Okay, friends. So tonight's topic is metta. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about metta for a while. Then maybe we'll do a little guided metta meditation. And then we will have some time for a Q&A. I think that's be a good way thing to do today. So I think we should start out metta by talking about the term, the Pali word, the definition, metta. So this was originally translated as loving kindness, right? This is very, very, I guess you can't quite say it's ancient, but it's old. I think it's like 100-year-old translation of metta. And it's not a really good translation. It's although it's so ubiquitous that this is the translation everybody knows. My preceptor, I was ordained by Bhante Gunaratana of Mindfulness in Plain English fame. And he came out with a book just recently, a year or two ago, called Mindfulness, Loving Kindness in Plain English. And he wanted to use the definition that he uses for metta, but Wisdom Publication says, no, we can't use it because everybody knows loving kindness. So that's what we're going to use. Bhante Gunaratana he translates metta as loving friendliness. And it's closer. The word metta just literally means friendliness or friend. There's two ways people debate what root metta comes from. And some say that it comes from it comes from the word mitra, which means friend. And others say, no, it actually comes from the word mid. And the root mid is actually where the loving part comes from. Mid, the root means to grow fat, to grow large, right? So you could say that practicing metta is to grow fat with friendliness. Or you could say loving friendliness, one way or the other. But really, metta is about developing a mind of friendliness. And the reason why we do this is because it directly counteracts ill will in our mind. It directly counteracts one of the three akusala mulas, the unskillful roots. Right? We have, as part of our mind, we have hatred, we have resentment, we have ill will, aversion. Right? Metta, along with the rest of the Brahma Viharas, is a practice that directly counteracts that. And so this is why the Buddha encourages us to practice metta. In the suttas, you'll see that the Buddha says that a person could give 500 barrels of food for breakfast, 500 barrels of food for lunch, 500 barrels of food for dinner. And all of the merit generated by giving so much dana is worth only 1/16 of the merit of practicing metta for the length of a finger snap. That's how powerful metta is. And so Aya has named this "Metta is always the answer." And I guess it's an interesting way to think about it in this way. The answer really is, as a Buddhist person who's practicing, is that you practice metta. And that metta becomes the basis for all of your activities and all of your interactions, both with yourself and how you treat yourself, and also how you treat others. The Buddha says, makes these similes as how important metta is, because he knows the danger of a mind filled with ill will, with anger, with hatred. He knows that when you have a mind that is full of these unskillful thoughts, unskillful mind states, then that will lead to unskillful physical actions and unskillful verbal actions. So this is why the Buddha praises practicing metta. Metta is appamana, limitless. It's mahagada, exalted, expansive. And in this way, the Buddha wants us to practice metta in such a way that there is no distinction, no categorization, no discrimination. There is no one left out when we practice metta. You know, it's very common. Probably the most common way that people are taught metta these days is in this kind of linear fashion of going from a person to a person. Like first I start with a person a family member, then I do a neutral person, then a person that is an enemy, etc. These things. But this is not something that's taught in the early texts. You don't find this in the suttas. The Buddha talks about practicing metta for all beings without any distinctions. You're not practicing metta towards one person, then one person, then one person, but expanding it out for all beings everywhere. That's why it is limitless. As a matter of fact, my preferred translation of metta is actually Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translation, or Ajahn Jeff's. He translates it as limitless goodwill. I think, in my opinion, that is the most perfect way in English to encapsulate what metta is in the suttas. Limitless goodwill and friendship towards all beings. And, when people practice metta, we think about, well, may all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings, live in friendship with each other, all these kind of very nice thoughts. But it should be understood that when we practice these metta and we think of these thoughts, we're not really expecting that the world is going to hold hands and sing kumbaya and everybody's going to be peaceful to each other. This is not the nature of reality. This is not the nature of the samsaric state. The nature of the samsaric state is that we are all beings full of greed, hatred, and delusion. We are all beings full of that have no idea what we're doing. We're grasping blindly in the dark, trying to find peace and contentment and meaning and all of these things. And in doing so, because we're grasping blindly in the dark, we cause ourselves suffering. We increase the suffering of others. They're also causing themselves suffering. So this is the importance of metta, is to allow us to develop our mind in such a way that as long as we're awake, as long as we're moving around in the world, we have metta in our mind. We have the default mode that we are going to interact with other people is with goodwill, like a friend. And this is very important to understand that, again, it's limitless. We don't say oh, I don't like that person. I don't, they're a murderer. They're whatever, pedophile. They're whatever. I don't like that. I don't need to give metta to that person. Metta is always the answer, right? Metta is to be given in your mind to all beings without exemption, to anyone. And this is because metta helps you to eradicate every little nook and cranny of ill will in that mind. And that's what you want. An awakened being has no ill will. It's gone. All beings, he has limitless goodwill. All beings, they have compassion to all beings. But when we start out, we're going to be may all beings be happy except for that person. Your mind's going to go your mind's going to just point out this person. They're going to say, no, not this guy, not this woman. May all beings except for that person. That's the normal nature. That's the mind. But you can counteract that by saying, may all beings except for that person. No, even that person. That person, whoever it is a being in samsara just like you. Maybe in this life, they've done really horrible things. Maybe they've killed millions of people, or done all kinds of horrible things. But guess what? The Buddha tells us that in past lives, so have you. You've done all kinds of horrible things in your past lives. You've also done all kinds of very good things in your past lives. So when we think about it in this way, when we think about beings as like fellow searchers, fellow journeyers in the samsaric state. He says, well, okay, well, there's no reason to not have metta for all beings. I worked in child protective services. That was my career before I became a monk. And I've sat across the table from, leaders of gangs who killed people. I've sat across the table from, people who molested young children. I was part of investigating those kind of things for a while. And when I sat down with those people, I always remembered first that they're human, right? Any person, any being is not the sum of the worst thing that they've done. And then also second, I remembered to have metta for this person. That was a good training for me because it's very simple, especially, most people don't meet people like that in the flesh. But when you actually are with the person, it's very simple to kind of have that judgment arise. He says, no, there's no need for me to not have metta for this person. Now, some people might say, well, what are they? But they say this or they do this. Having metta for somebody does not mean you condone what they do. Somebody could be a mass murderer and should probably, for the safety of society, be in jail for the rest of their lives. But you can still have metta in your mind for them. Warm-hearted feelings of friendship for them. So this is something people get confused about. Metta, having goodwill for a being does not mean that you condone that they do bad actions. We should not condone bad actions, nor should we encourage bad actions. Right? We should encourage good actions. And every being has the potential for good actions. Every being. So we should encourage good action. We should encourage developing a mind of metta. We should build a mind of metta. So the Buddha says that when somebody practices metta, when they practice it very well, when they make it their vehicle, 11 benefits are to be had. The first 3 around sleeping. So 1 goes to bed in peace, 1 has no evil dreams, and 1 wakes up in peace. When you go to bed, practice lots of metta, sending out metta for the entire world, the universe, all beings. And it's so nice and peaceful, your mind, and you go to bed. And there's no evil can come to your mind then. You've gone to bed with metta. And then when you wake up, your mind is so peaceful, and you can continue to spread metta out to all beings. And then when you practice metta, when you really seriously practice metta, you are dear to human beings and dear to non-human beings. This is very simple. Think about people in your own life. Do you have friends that are just always constantly negative? Always negative, always thinking about everything is on the worst possible thing, always harping on the negative, not very joyful, not very mettaful. You kind of don't want to be around people like that, right? It feels almost like kind of like they're sapping your energy from you. But when you're around somebody who's very kind and joyful and who just exudes metta, I've Buddhist people will talk about this. I've had this experience once where I met this monk, and it was like I moved into a force field as I got closer to this monk. And when I moved into that force field, it was like a feeling of friendship, a feeling of kindness, a feeling of non-judgment. Like this monk would not judge me. Just a feeling of safety and security and peace. And that's metta. This is what can happen, right? When you practice lots of metta and then people want to be around you. You are dear to human beings and dear to the devas, right? Non-human beings, also dear to animals. After I started practicing lots and lots of metta in my job, when I'd visit a house, and little children would just come right up to me, or the dogs would just come right up to me. I'm just the first time I ever visited the house, and the parents would have to say, like, "That's weird. My children don't normally just go walk up to strangers. My dog doesn't normally just go up to strangers like this." And it started happening so much, I was like, "Oh, I think it's the metta." Right? So like children and dogs and beings like that don't have strong verbal abilities, they sometimes they have senses that we kind of lose in a way. And they notice, they can tell things, and so you'll see that. This is why dear to human beings, dear to non-human beings. Then the next, fire, poison, and sword, cannot touch them. Now, this one is interesting. Some people say it's a metaphor. Like my preceptor Bhante Ji will say, what it means, fire, poison, and sword, is greed, hatred, and delusion. meaning like this is, so they're metaphors for the three unwholesome roots. The way I kind of view this is this. Because you are dear to human beings and dear to non-human beings, because you exude metta, what happens is you're a lot less likely to have to be in situations where people hate you, people want to hurt you. You disarm people. Now it's not like you become Superman and people are going to shoot bullets at you. It's like, I have metta, I'm impervious. Right? No, that's not what it means. But it means that metta acts as like a protection. And that when you're dear to all these beings, the chances of a being wanting to harm you is much less. So I believe that's my understanding of this. And so then the next is devas protect you. The devas, the heavenly beings, the celestial beings, they are very supportive of beings who practice the Dhamma very well. And so it's said in the tradition and in the suttas that the devas will protect beings who practice well and who practice lots of metta. Protect beings from coming to harm. And then after that is your countenance is serene. Your face shines when you're full of metta. It's like you shine to people. You smile. You're not like, you're smiling. You have an easy smile, and it's very kind, very open to people. And so your countenance is serene. You gain concentration quickly. Your mind comes to very stillness and calm and peace very quickly. That's because when your mind is full of metta all the time, not full of restlessness and remorse, one of the hindrances, not full of ill will, another one of the hindrances, then your mind is very easy to become calm and peaceful. When you have no enemies anywhere. I can't think of anybody in existence that I feel is an enemy to me. I even make, like when I do metta retreats, when I'm leading a retreat, I'll talk about like testing your metta, right? And I'll say, can you have metta for Hitler, right? or Stalin or Genghis Khan or whoever, like the most quote unquote evil people that we know. If you can have metta for beings like that, who are beings just like you in samsara, then your metta is developing. Your metta is growing strong. Metta is very important. Tao says metta for Mara. Yes, even so. Mara is a being in samsara. We've probably all been Mara one time or another. So yeah, we can have metta for Mara as well. So concentration, gain concentration quickly. All right. One dies unconfused in mind. Again, your mind is calm, peaceful, full of metta, full of goodwill. So your mind is not confused. You have clarity. You have stillness of mind. And then the last one is if you die, if you die and you're not awakened by the time you die, then you will be born in the Brahma realms. So it's like, if you practice lots of metta, if you don't become awakened in this life, you have a heck of a consolation prize. You can be born in the highest heavens. That's why the 4 Brahma Viharas, Brahma, the highest heavens, Vihara means to dwell. So you can dwell in the highest heavens. And when you practice metta, you develop metta and karuna, compassion, and mudita, appreciative joy, and upekkha, equanimity. When you develop these things, it's as if your mind is dwelling in the heavens, even right here in this very life. Because if you know a mind of anger, like if you really know, if you're a meditator, you've been meditating for a long time, and you really start to understand the mind, anger in the mind is like oppressive. It's heavy. It's miserable. I have an aversion to having anger in my mind. Probably not the best thing to have an aversion. But when I have anger in my mind, it's like, ooh, what can I do to alleviate this? Because this is not pleasant. It's not worth having an angry mind. Not a good thing. And so there's also a wonderful sutta that I wanted to mention where it's called By a Snake. If you look in the Anguttara Nikaya, or you go to like Sutta Central and type in By a Snake, you can find it. And it's a wonderful sutta where it starts out that a monk is bitten by a snake and dies. And the monks go to the Buddha and they say, Bhante, this monk has died from being bitten by a snake. And the Buddha said, if he had suffused metta to all the 4 great king lineages of snakes, then he would not have died from that snake. So the Buddha's basically like, he didn't practice metta enough. Living in the jungle with all these dangerous beings, you got to be practicing lots of metta. All the times I've spent like out at night in the woods and up in the mountains by myself in the dark, I'm practicing until I go to sleep. I'm practicing lots and lots of metta to all the beings in the forest. So the Buddha says, and then the Buddha says to practice metta, and he says, this is how you should practice. He gives a protection. And so protection goes like this. I have metta for those with no feet. I have metta for those with 2 feet. I have metta for those with 4 feet. I have metta for those with many feet. So spreading metta out to all beings, no feet, 2 feet, 4 feet, many feet pretty much covers every being on the planet, right? And so then the next part goes, may those with no feet not harm me. May those with 2 feet not harm me. May those with 4 feet not harm me. May those with many feet not harm me. It's a very beautiful sentiment, isn't it? It's like a joint, coming to a joint agreement. I have lots of metta for you, and I won't harm you. So please also have lots of metta for me, and don't harm me. That might not work with some humans, but at least in my experience, it's worked pretty well with animals. Everything from big spiders to snakes and to bears and things. And so I'm still alive, at least. So we've come to the end of the half hour. And so I'll close out by saying metta is always the answer. Yes, it is always the answer. Remember, it's not condoning bad behavior. It's not doing anything other than making sure that your mind is always abiding in goodwill for all beings. And when you do that, if your mind is always abiding in goodwill for all beings, then it can be sure that for the most part, your actions will be skillful. The Buddha wants us to always reflect on our actions. Is this action beneficial for myself and others, or harmful for myself and others? If you act out of a mind of metta, because we're ignorant, because we're not awakened, we still might do an action that will harm a being. But because we have metta, we have our mindfulness too. At the end of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Buddha says one should develop this mindfulness. The Buddha is saying metta is a mindfulness. So when we have metta, then that means we always want to make sure that we minimize harm for ourselves, to ourselves and others. And so if we see that we're doing a bad action, we will say, oh, we'll stop. Right? This is a mind of metta. So yes, metta is always the answer. What's the question? The answer is metta. Right? The answer is metta. Developing metta, going through the world, abiding in metta for all beings. And so why don't we practice? Why don't we do a practice of abiding in metta for all beings? Okay? So we'll do now about 25 minutes or so of practice. So you can set yourself in a comfortable and stable position, whether that's on the couch, on the cushion, in a chair. We'll spend a minute or two scanning through our body, starting from the feet, going up to the head. Put your awareness on your feet. And by that, I mean to pay attention to the feet and whatever sensation or feeling you find there. What is the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor or the cushion? Bring your attention up through the ankles and into the calves. Again, focusing on whatever sensation and feeling arises in that part of the body. Up through the knees and into the thighs. As you're doing this, you might notice that there's a small feeling of discomfort or a small imbalance in your posture. That's a good thing to notice. When you notice that, you can adjust your posture to alleviate that. It's good to spend some time scanning through your body and adjusting your posture now so you can sit for longer periods without moving during the practice. Bring your awareness through to the hips and pelvis. Observe how the position of the pelvis impacts the spine. Move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest. Ideally, it's best to have your spine be in its neutral position, the upper body not leaning and slouching side to side or back and forth. Check that the shoulders are hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Move down the arms to the elbows and hands. Observe how the position of the elbows and hands impacts your posture. And finally, bring your awareness up to the head. Check that the head is also not leaning and slouching, chin parallel to the floor. And once you're ready, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body's been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so till the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as the body breathes in and the body breathes out. Continue to follow your breath as I give some instructions on metta. This metta practice will consist of both words and visuals. But the words and visuals are not the point of the practice. They're just the means to an end. The point of the practice is to develop a mind free of ill will and warm-hearted feelings of friendliness towards all beings. When we begin, we'll repeat some words. I'll prompt you when to repeat. And then I'll offer some visuals to help with the practice. You can use the visuals or not. It's up to you. In this practice, we will begin pervading and developing metta in a small area, and then gradually, slowly increase our metta to all beings. So we'll start developing metta for the person that we may have the most aversion towards, agitation towards, maybe even hatred towards. That person is ourselves. We cannot hope to spread metta out into the universe for all beings without first building it here with ourselves. If you like, you can visualize a sphere around you. And as we say the words, we want to completely fill that sphere with our goodwill and friendliness. Repeat the words. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. Friends, when we say the words, we don't want to just repeat them quickly like a mantra without any thoughts. Whenever we say the words, we want to really put our heartfelt friendliness behind them, like speaking them to a best friend, a close relative. If you like, you can visualize an image of yourself in front of you, like looking in the mirror. And you can say the words towards that image. Repeat. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. Continue to fill that sphere with your goodwill, friendliness, warm wishes. If you like, you can think of other positive thoughts, affirmations, statements of goodwill to say towards yourself like you would a friend. Let's begin now to take steps outside of ourselves, expanding our sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever building you're in. All kinds of beings in that building, humans, animal, insects, beings you never see behind the walls. Completely pervade the whole building with your goodwill and friendliness. Repeat the words. May all of us in this building find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever town or village or city that you're in. May all of us in this town, village, or city find peace. May all of us find happiness. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. We say the words all of us because you are still included in the sphere of metta. The metta sphere is getting ever larger, including ever larger numbers of beings, but you're still in that sphere. You are part of all beings. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever state, region, or province that you're in. Millions of beings, human, animal, insect, seen and unseen. May all of us in this state, province, or region find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. If you like, you can visualize or imagine the metta continuously pouring from you, continuing to fill the sphere, pervading all beings. Spread your metta out to encompass the entirety of our home planet, the Earth. Trillions of beings in the air, land, and the sea. Seen and unseen beings. All beings in the samsaric state living out their lives. You can visualize the earth, a pale blue dot in a sea of black, totally encompassed in your sphere of metta, pervading all beings on this planet. May all of us on planet Earth find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Remember, metta is limitless, expansive. When we practice metta, race doesn't matter, sex, political affiliation, religious affiliation, country affiliation, sports team affiliation, whatever of the many, many ways that we categorize and have distinction for beings, beings we like and beings we don't. Metta breaks through barriers. It has no limits. And so do not limit your metta for any reason. Just as the sun shines its rays on all beings, you do similar with your metta. We are not done yet, friends. Continue to spread your sphere out into the cosmos to encompass the entirety of our home galaxy, the Milky Way. Billions of stars, perhaps trillions of planets. Who knows how many beings in this huge expanse? May all of us in this Milky Way find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Now spread your sphere of metta further out into the cosmos to encompass all beings everywhere, to the edges of this universe, multiple universes, dimensions, whatever there may be beings in the samsaric state, sentient beings like us, untold numbers. Spread your sphere out to infinity to encompass all beings in existence. May all of us in existence find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Come back through the cosmos, opening your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you. If you are abiding in bliss for all beings, in goodwill for all beings blissfully, that's good. If not, it's okay. Metta is a practice. It's to be developed. If you do it enough for a long enough period of time, then it will be very easy. You could just be walking down the road and just shoot your metta sphere out to all beings everywhere. Just be walking and abiding in metta. It takes practice. It takes time. And we'll do the questions now. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll go through them. But I wanted to end with a poem. This poem, I think, perfectly encapsulates metta. It's not a Buddhist poem. And the person who wrote it is not a Buddhist. He's a British guy from the late 1800s. Name is called Edwin Markham. And this is a poem that I've known about for years. I used to have it at my pod at work. Among my Buddhist things, I'd put in there. And so it goes like this. It's called Outwitted. It goes, they drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took them in. That's metta. Doesn't matter if people take you out of their circles. Doesn't matter about what people think of you. What matters is that you include all beings in your circle. Right? Making it so that your default mode of engaging with all beings is one of metta. Now, that doesn't mean unwise kind of like, you know what, like they would say in the Tibetan, like idiot compassion. It doesn't, like, you know, some like in the Thai forest, they'll say, metta doesn't mean you go and hug the anaconda. Oh, nice snake, nice anaconda. That's not metta. That metta is you wish that this being lives in peace and is not harmed, and we can coexist without harming each other. That's good metta. So let's check the chat. Hello, Naranjan, Douse, Andy, PGS, Nguyen, Carol, Dipti, Anthony, Si Young, Deborah. Deborah has a question. I'm in the process of trying to convince my landlord not to use pesticides and weed killers. I told him that nature knows when we are harmless. Suggestions. You know, I don't know if this means like you're part of a, you know, like in an apartment complex or you're renting a house. So like that kind of makes a difference in like what ability you have to impact something like that. You know, it's important to kind of understand what we can do and what we can't. You know, we can try to convince the landlord, you know, oh, let's try to not harm these beings. But the landlord may not be a Buddhist. The landlord might do what he feels is the most productive and best thing for his property. So if you can, you know, if you can convince him, that's good. If not, then what really matters most is your own actions. That's what really matters most. How do you do your best to avoid the first precept, right? Killing beings. That's the most important thing. A lot of times you don't have control over other people's actions. It's good that you are trying to convince them, but you also don't, especially sometimes people go about that in a very forceful way. You know, we don't want to be forceful towards people, mostly because frankly, that just puts up defenses. That doesn't help. You know, it does not help if you engage people's defenses and then they just won't listen to you at all. Welcome, Anusha and Vidora One. So Shadow of Label does have a question here. So I was meditating a minute ago and broke out of a daydreaming and electricity went down my left side and my whole body jerked. Is that normal? It can be. All kinds of stuff can happen during meditation. You know, this is pretty common things that stuff will happen. And the important thing is not to get really attached to it and not necessarily to try to attribute to it any major meaning. Right? That actually can just lead us down all kinds of mental activity, especially if we're trying to do that while we're meditating. And that will just actually harm our meditation. So just when an experience happens, just observe it. You know, investigate it. Oh, this is interesting. What's this? Like, for instance, I've been in some states where I get the same feeling like when I jumped out of a plane. Like, yeah, I did skydive once, and like and the same feeling will be in like meditation, where it'll be like exhilaration, just a jolt of energy in my body. Like when you just jump out of the plane, and it's just okay. It's just there, good, and just continue following my practice. That's all. It arises and then it ceases. Hello, Jayantha. That was my first name. That was my Pali name as a layperson. Jayantha Fernando. That's definitely a Sri Lankan name. Sud. Welcome, Sud. Welcome, Lucas. Joskar or Yoskar. Morgana, welcome. Sud has a question. Dear Bhante, you mentioned finger snap sutta. Does this mean that merit accumulated by doing metta is the highest type of merit, or is there something higher? Yes, the highest type of merit is meditating and becoming awakened. That's the highest type of merit. When we think of merit, this word punya, we often mostly think of giving food, giving dana to the monastics to honor our loved ones who are passed away. But merit simply means skillful, good, meritorious actions. So actions that are worthy of merit. Actions that somebody could say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good action. So so meditation is meritorious. So doing the practice, the most meritorious things follow, practice the Noble Eightfold Path in full to realize your freedom from suffering. That's the most meritorious thing. If all of your actions, large and small, are meritorious actions, then you can't go wrong. It's not good to kind of get attached to, like, I should only do like the most meritorious thing. What's the most meritorious things? Because then you're like kind of, you're building up attachment. You're building up kind of like a conceit. Like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the most meritorious things. Right? And we can get wrapped up in certain things and everything else is falling apart around us. Right? So it's good to consider the whole practice and trying to have all of your actions be meritorious. Oh, I see a good question. A good, a valid meta question here. But, oh, wait, I see questions before it. So Bhavani has a question. Please clarify Ajahn Metta. Oh, no, please clarify. Metta is generating goodwill towards the universe and the mind. It doesn't mean that one can help. I'm not used to this whole thing where you actually can put the question on the screen, which is really cool. But okay, so goodwill toward the universe and mind. It doesn't mean that one can help each and every one physically, correct? Yes. So my preceptor, Bhante Ji, says, he would say during the retreats, he would say, metta is not magic. Metta is not like sending, like you have this kind of new age things, like send vibes out to the world, man. Like, like you're sending vibes and like something out to other beings and like you're connected. That's not what metta is. Metta is all about your own mind. That's why you're practicing metta, to eradicate ill will from your mind. It doesn't mean that you can help all beings. Nobody, not even the Buddha, could help all beings. The Buddha knew very well that all he could do was show the way. Beings had to travel the path on their own. So if not even a Samma Sambuddha could help all beings, how are we going to help all beings? It's impossible. But when we develop metta, when we live with metta, we make metta our vehicle, then we benefit everyone around us in our daily lives. We can have much, much benefit to many beings, including ourselves, if we practice metta. Hassan, welcome. Question: what sutta is your favorite sutta and why? I have like 80 favorite suttas. It's hard. If I had to choose one sutta, it would have to be Satipatthana Sutta or Mahasatipatthana Sutta. Satipatthana is the direct path to the purification of beings. It's like the best sutta. If you followed Satipatthana, within 7 days you could become awakened. So like that is such a powerful sutta. It's practical, pragmatic, and very deep and wise, all in one. It's a toolbox for how to live in the world and how to be mindful in investigating your mind and body, and also a path. So Satipatthana Sutta, that would the foundations of mindfulness. That would have to be my favorite. Now, here's the question. What to do when someone takes advantage of kindness? This is a very good question because this is something people have misconceptions about metta, right? Just because you have metta for beings doesn't mean you just let them do unskillful things. You always like, somebody's harming you. You can have metta for them, but you also have metta for yourself. You can have compassion for yourself and them as well. And you say, I am not going to enable this person to harm me. It's not good that this person is taking advantage of me. And I am not going to enable them to take advantage of me. Right? A famous sutta with the Buddha, the simile of the gift. Right? The Brahmin comes to the Buddha. Because, in the suttas, you see these Brahmins who will say, okay, I am going to debate the Buddha. And just like a strong man does whatever he wants with a weak man, I will do that to the Buddha in debate. Right? They're very braggadocious. And then they come to the Buddha, and the Buddha mops the floor with him, basically. But so this Brahmin comes to the Buddha and berates him and yells at the Buddha. And the Buddha says, such and such Brahmin, I forgot the Brahmin's name. When you go to somebody's house, do you bring a gift? And the Brahmin's like, yes, of course. That is the part of our culture. That is what we do. Interestingly enough, in many cultures, that's still the way it is to this day. Growing up Italian, it was always, if we go somewhere, we have to bring a gift. We have to bring something, right? And so the Buddha says, okay, well, if you give a gift to the person and they don't accept it, then what do you do? And then the Brahmin says, well, we use it ourselves. So the Buddha says, you have given me a gift, Brahmin. I do not accept it. Take your gift. And so the Buddha is saying, I don't accept. You are berating your ill will towards me. I do not accept it. You keep it. Right? So we see this, that the Buddha is showing us examples of, in the suttas, how to be firm. You can be very firm. You can, somebody takes advantage of you, you can say, I don't want to, I'm going to not even deal with you. I don't need to deal with you. I'm going to set boundaries, right? I'm going to set boundaries. and the Buddha tells us not to associate with foolish people, see you later. I'm going to go associate with wise people instead. Okay? We don't have to let people take advantage of us. But that doesn't mean that not letting people take advantage of you requires anger and agitation and acting unskillfully. A wise person knows how to stick up for themselves in a skillful way. And so as we follow the path and as we practice, we'll practice doing that. But we'll mess up because we're not wise yet. But each time we mess up, we learn from it. We get better. We grow from it, and we become wiser. Then we know how to handle hard situations. It's when somebody takes advantage of you, you don't need to accept it. Right? Because there are people, they will mistake your kindness, your metta, for weakness. And because that's kind of how they are raised in the world, that's what they kind of see. They think, oh, they're a weak person. I can take advantage of them. But some of the kind of most like humble, kind people that I've ever met, actually, interestingly enough, and I know this sounds counterintuitive, but like I've had a lot of veterans in my life, family and friends and things like that. And I've had the experience to be around people who are like former special forces guys. Like you think like these big, tough, murderous killer type people, they must have they must be all this, this, and this. But they're so like low key and chill and full of humility and peace, but they don't take crap from you. Right? Like, so they know how to do things in skillful ways. Same thing with a very wise, skillful monk. Right? A person can come up to them and berate them and act unskillfully to them. But a monk does not have to accept that. They can skillfully and wisely de-escalate a situation and know how to handle it. Sometimes the best thing is I'm done. I'm removing myself from this situation. You do not have the right to take advantage of me. But still, remember, metta for this person. Doesn't matter if the person is Kakachupama Sutta, the simile of the saw. The Buddha gives us the metta ideal. What's the metta ideal? Right? He starts out, it starts out in the sutta that a monk is being berated or taught or talked down to, and they get agitated. And the friends of the monk get agitated. So the Buddha says, well, if this happens, this is how you should train. My mind shall remain unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. And starting with this being, I shall pervade the all-encompassing world with a mind of metta, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without limit. And then it progresses. If somebody were to hit you with a fist, hit you with a rock, hit you with a stone, and then the capstone is, the Buddha says, even if bandits were to take you and were to saw you limb from limb, if anyone were to have ill will towards them in their mind, then they are not doing my teaching. Wow. That's a hard thing to live up to, right? That's why it's an ideal. Most people could not do that, obviously. But the Buddha is making it very, very, very clear in that sutta that there is no excuse for you to not develop metta for a being, even if they are harming you. You take actions to protect yourself, to set boundaries. You don't need to be a doormat. but you should still have metta. That's not an excuse to allow your mind to be filled with anger and agitation and aversion. that will happen naturally, but we want to practice lots and lots of metta all the time, continuously, so that when anger does arise in our mind, it doesn't have any power over us. Right? We can say, "Oh, anger's in my mind, but I'm going to choose to act in a mettaful way, a wise way, so that I don't cause any harm further to myself and others." All right, going through the chat again. So Jay Kala has a question. Sending metta to the 5 khandhas during meditation, treating them like visitors or passerby, this way all feelings are turned into skillful ones. Is this considered improper because they aren't conscious? It's not really taught that way, but in essence, the Buddha tells us that really all we are is the 5 khandhas. So really what you are doing is, when you're giving metta to another being, you're giving metta to 5 aggregates. So, it's a bit, how shall I say, it's a bit abnormal. Right? I've never heard of anybody doing this before, but I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it. I'll even give metta to like inanimate objects, because it's still ill will. Just because, again, remember, it's about your mind. So if you're like, I hate this water bottle, Poland Spring, I hate that company, this water bottle, whatever, you're still filling your mind with ill will, right? So why have ill will towards the water bottle? Your practice is, have goodwill towards the water bottle. Does it sound silly? I guess. But what I've noticed is that any ill will in the mind, I start out having ill will towards the water bottle, and then I see anagarika yens, and I'm like, oh, an anagarika yens. Oh, and then Aya, and then this, it's like a chain reaction. Right? Once you get it started in your mind, it just builds from there. So I have nothing against it. I mean, again, a bit unconventional. I think that I was trying to find a word better than abnormal. I think unconventional would be a good word for it, but if it works, it works. Janatha says, yes, I just went to Sri Lanka and came back. Yes, I hope you were safe there, and I hope things are gradually getting better. I actually am probably going to Sri Lanka sometime towards the end of the year, or at least the plan was to do that. Hopefully things will be a bit more stable and I'll be able to visit. We'll see. But, hello, Magar, Robin. Oh, chat just jumped a little bit on me here. Sud has a question. And we are coming close to the end here, so maybe this will be like the last question or the next one. So, dear Bhante, do you think it's wise to use metta as an antidote to fear and other unwholesome feelings like greed and jealousy? Yeah. Well, so I'll take fear first. Usually, fear is multifactorial, meaning like there's a lot of things that work towards fear. Metta, like I said, when I'm, in the woods, basically, just with no tent and just kind of being in the woods in the middle of the night, and all kinds of beings are around me, it's good to, the metta calms the mind. It's like, oh, give all the metta to all the beings. And, may you also not harm me. I'm simply I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just here in the woods practicing, and I'm going to sleep. May no beings harm me. And then that will calm your mind. And then, the fear will go away. But also, wisdom really is the thing that really is the biggest antidote to fear. Wisdom, insight. That's why Buddhists practice mindfulness of death practices, so that we really reflect on the fact that we're going to grow old, get sick, and die. And so fear for that fades away because we reflect on it, and we're very close to it, and we see the divine messengers, and we understand, okay, no. And then fear fades away. Greed and jealousy, you can have metta, but what I would say is the best thing for greed is to practice what the Buddha said, the gratification, the danger, and the escape. If you have greed for something, I want this, reflect on it, investigate it. Oh, I want this because there's gratification. It's a pleasant feeling, a pleasant experience, so I want it. And because of that, it has its hooks in me. I'm attached to it. That's the downside, right? The drawbacks, the downside to it is that I attach to it. I chase after it. I cause myself suffering. And then reflect on the release. What is this? Letting go of this greed. And the greed fades away. And it's like, it's so peaceful in the mind. A mind without greed. All right. And jealousy, the Buddha, in the suttas, the Buddha reflects on, if somebody is going through a hard time, you reflect, I too have experienced this in my journey in samsara. If somebody has, a coworker gets the promotion over you or something, whatever brings you jealousy, you look at somebody who has more things than you reflect. I too have had, very many, things in past lives. I've been very, very rich, and I've had many things, and people were jealous of me, and perhaps even people hated me because of that, or people killed me because of it to take my things. You reflect, well, why should I have jealousy or ill will towards this person? Let me have metta towards this person. You could practice that. So metta is good for all of these, but it's not the only thing good for. Remember, metta is specifically for working towards ill will. Remember, we have three unwholesome roots: lobha, dosa, moha. Attachment or greed, aversion or ill will, and delusion. So metta is specifically for the dosa, for the ill will. You can practice letting go and practice parts of the path that allow you to abandon greed and metta at the same time, as kind of two forces, a two-pronged attack against greed and jealousy. All right. For jealousy, you practice mudita. This person is doing well. They have these good things. They got the job, whatever. May they be well, happy, and peaceful. Practice being joyful at other people's joy instead of jealous and resentful. Welcome, Suman. All right. All right, friends. So we've come to the end of the chat, and we've come to the end. It is 9:00 here p.m. in on the East Coast of America. So, friends, such ends another live stream for Empty Cloud. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which will be Friday. So Friday, while I'm here for the next month, Friday morning streams, I'm going to be going through Satipatthana. So this Friday is Kaya Nupassana, investigating or contemplating the body in the body, Friday morning. And then it's just going to be lonely old me for monk chat. So I might try to convince some of the other people here to be part of monk chat. We'll see. But otherwise, it'll just be me. Okay, friends. Oh, P. Gurgle Sigrilla says that she received a name from Aya Vimalanyani. Welcome, Metika. Welcome. I also gave a name to a lady who is a supporter and part of my community this weekend, or actually, no, Monday. It's a very good, auspicious thing when you are a practitioner, a serious practitioner, and you're given a Pali name. It's really nice, really good thing. I was given Jayanta when I took the 8 lifetime precepts as a layperson with Bhante Ji. Okay, friends, until next time.